Buildaid Media, powered by builders and supported by Mix 93.8 FM and SA Garden and Home, are proud to bring you this homeowner workshop series. Throughout this series, we will be showcasing a wide variety of industry specialists to ensure a positive building experience. In this episode, Muhamed Akhalwaya from Radiant discusses the importance of proper planning for your lighting choices in your kitchen and in your home in general. He looks at fittings, lamps, and the technologies available. Your host is Graham Alexander from Buildaid Media.
Muhamed Akhalwaya from Radiant Lighting. Muhamed, thanks for coming to chat to us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we want to talk through the importance of lighting and also how to plan and so on. So let's start on that importance of lighting. And I would guess, Muhamed, if you're walking into a shop or a store and you say, I want to buy a light, there are so many different things you've got to consider. What kind of lamp, what kind of fitting it's going to go into, what are you trying to light up? And I think talking about kitchens, lighting may be a little bit more tricky because it's not just about ambience, it could also be about functionality within the kitchen.
Yes, Graham. Planning is critical for lighting. So I would advise anybody building or even retrofitting to come through and speak to us as specialists or speak to anybody in the field. A lot of contractors are getting clued up as to what is required in the lighting space, as well as architects and quantity surveyors. So if you've got a professional on your side and you can spare a few minutes, just spend that little extra time and you enjoy what you buy at the end.
Some new regulations came through, well, they're not new anymore, they came through in about 4 years ago with regard to energy efficiency in building homes, and it relates to windows and insulation and so on, but it obviously also relates to electricity. And can you believe 4 years ago when you submitted the drawings, those drawings with 60% of the information missing, they didn't need an electrical layout, and quotes would come back. And those are the construction sites, you see people running around with chalk marking things up because nobody had thought about it. Most architects, most good architects will work with lighting experts, electrical experts, and with companies like Radiant. Muhamed, you have, I think it's 3 floors of showroom space
Yes.
to view different fittings.
Yes, we try and fit as much as we can in a very easy to see system. So the catalog is about 2,000 lines, but the showroom has got just a small percentage of that so that you can look and feel and get a touch of what that item would look like. Another important point on planning, Graham, would be for concrete ceilings. If you're building a double-story or a 3-story home, you often have to use concrete ceilings. And it would be essential for you to do your lighting planning because the concrete box can only accommodate a certain size. And if you wish to go with something bigger or smaller, you need to pre-plan that. And I think that's another important point on planning that has to be mentioned.
It's pretty much in place. If the electrical plan says I've got a light here, and as Muhamed said, it's a concrete slab, and you now want to move that light, it's going to be very expensive. Like the kitchen. If you have an island in the kitchen, or right at the last minute you decide to have an island, the last minute planners, remember when the roof's on and the plastering's done, and we need gas, electricity, and water at that island. Those 3 connections will cost around 5,500 Rand. If you've had to move them, you would have paid 5,500 Rand once, 5,500 Rand twice, and about another 2,000 Rand to disconnect the wrong one. It just doesn't have to happen. Use the architect, use experts, get it right before you start planning. Light fittings, Muhamed, when it comes to a bulb and they're not called bulbs, they're called lamps. If I'm so used to calling them bulbs. If you want a light to do a certain thing, it's going to go into a certain kind of fitting. And that first one is downlighters.
Just to bring back the planning aspect, we try and keep, when advising a client, we try and keep the core essentials the same so that you're not stuck with the same type of light fitting. If and when you ever need to change, you would obviously have the core essentials the same, but you can just upgrade your light fitting. we will get into a few points later on color temperature where you could literally change the look and feel of your entire kitchen or living space by simply just changing a bulb. So essentially, the type of light and where you're using it becomes very integral in your planning.
We have a slide up there with pendants, and a pendant is a hanging light basically, and that's an example of how to use pendants. But I know in modern architecture, it's not only the functionality of those lights, but it can add an aesthetic to the kitchen.
Correct. That picture brilliantly displays the planning as well as the type of light. So for example, if that point or light point was a few centimeters off the kitchen top, you would have then had to, it's not all lost, so you can just simply build in a bulkhead, but it is a little extra cost. However, your pendant would be for your kitchen tops. Your downlight is generic living space. You've got outdoor lighting that obviously accents your garden and accents certain features in your home. You've got wall lights that can actually create a different image of your home during the evening as it has during the night.
Bulkheads, just so we understand what a bulkhead is, generally you're allowing the ceiling contractor to create another dimension in your kitchen with regard to the ceiling. That one's quite extreme, and that bulkhead would cost a few rands. They can be a lot simpler than that. But I think what comes through nicely in that slide, Muhamed, is that when you're looking at those footlights, and those lights are in the bulkhead.
Yes, it has become very famous, and it is very welcomed because it creates one aspect of design for lighting is to design for comfort. If you take this scenario and you walked into this kitchen at 6 o'clock in the evening just after work, it's very nice because you need to see where you're going and you need to see what you're doing. But if you had to switch off those down lights at 1 o'clock in the morning, you just needed a glass of water. You just need to see where you're going to grab your glass from your kitchen, get to the tap or to the fridge, pour it and walk out. You don't want to be woken up by the entire kitchen switching on. So the accent lighting is essential in design as well. And it's to design for your comfort. It's your home. You would like to be comfortable when you're using it at the time that you are using it.
Yeah, that's quite an extreme example of how to use spotlights. Quite modern. I actually like that.
This is a typical example of overcoming a common challenge as well, where one light point or two light points have been accommodated, and now you've got a larger space to light up. That's a concrete ceiling typically, and you can add a track light, so your options are not closed. It's not the end of the world if you didn't do it. There are other options out there. However, aesthetically, as you said, it's quite loud. It's got to fit in with your look and feel of the home. So yeah, spotlights, I would say, essential, especially in play areas where you could also move things around. Your studies, as Philip has said, where you now have a desk here, you want to move your printer there, and you can move your spotlights around. Those are track lights, so that allows for flexibility.
Lighting up a counter by putting the lights in the cupboards above. If you're not thinking about these kind of things, they're going to be left out.
Yes, that's correct, 100%. And we can go as far from both designing the kitchen as well as a lighting design, incorporate your kitchen design so that we can get to you as close as possible what your lighting would look like in your kitchen prior to you purchasing it. I think the common thing is when we buy a car, we'd spend over 200,000 rand to buy a car, and yet we'd look at every single piece on a car. Why wouldn't we do the same with a kitchen or home and try and get as close to possible reality of what we are going to purchase? Because the fact is you're only going to see the end result is after it's done.
Common lamp types here, Muhamed. The incandescent light on the top left-hand corner, you can still buy them. You shouldn't be buying them. They eat energy. The CFL next to it is more energy efficient. But I think where we're getting to there, Muhamed, is LEDs is where we want to go.
Yes.
And it demonstrates that LEDs that can come in any form or shape. They're not just restricted to the one on the bottom left.
Yes, that's correct. Incandescents are predominantly, would say, unavailable. They're quite illegal at some point to purchase. The CFL is a lamp that is being phased out by the industry. And that's simply because it's got a few environmental factors. Some of them contain mercury, and the lighting industry as a whole doesn't contribute much, but it is still best practice to move towards something more eco-friendly, more energy efficient, and with the LEDs coming out in all different shapes and sizes. I would advise, though, that please watch the size of the lamp, because you get different manufacturers that would manufacture an LED that looks quite differently compared to what the old lamp would look like. And the key issue there would be, does it fit in the actual fitting you have? Because you often find the LED looks a bit bigger or a little too smaller, it's not as bright, and that's where we advise, get us involved, come through to the showroom, bring a sample bring a few photos, and let us get you the right item.
And then it goes one step further. So it's like, I've got an LED, I've now put it into my pendant or into my downlighter or my countertop, but then these things do a whole lot of other things that are important.
Yeah, one of the key questions we always ask in a workshop would be, what would be brighter, a 15-watt lamp or a 20-watt lamp? And everybody jumps up and they're like, no, it's 20 watts, it's 20 watts. And that's actually got nothing to do, or not much to do, with the brightness that a lamp gives. The word we use, and you actually find that information on the packaging, is lumens. So any reasonable manufacturer standing at a builder's warehouse, for example, would have the lumens on the box. So if 2 lamps are 5 watt, the higher lumen would mean the higher output. And that you can use to your discretion. So if you're using a countertop, you don't need something to produce 700 lumens just over a basin.
Color temperature, that's an interesting term or concept.
Yes, color temperature has the ability to change the color of the object it reflects on. So if you're using a cool white lamp and you had a certain type of tile, it could make that tile look either a little yellow or too white. And that's essential for the look and feel you're trying to create in your space. So for example, if you've got a bedroom, you might want to use cool white or warm white. It's a very comforting color temperature to use. As opposed to outside, for security reasons, you might choose 6,000 Kelvin, which is daylight. And again, you'll find that information on the box of any reasonable manufacturer. So just look at the box, and the one thing I always say is, if you don't know, ask. Majority of us would be like, this looks too complicated, I don't know what to do. If you ask the person, or you pick up the phone and you phone the Radiant showroom, the salespeople would be more than happy just to advise you. I think you need, this is what you're buying, this is what you should take care of.
If I was using an LED at 5 watts, as opposed to my old incandescent lamp, which we hopefully don't use anymore, at 60 watts, or a bright one at 100 watts, it's using 20 times more wattage. What does that do to your electrical consumption?
When you tell somebody you can buy an incandescent lamp, which you shouldn't, at 10 Rand, or a reasonable LED at 60 Rand, they'll be like, no ways, that's 6 times the price. Whereas your electricity consumption is almost 85% less. So you basically reinvest your money into technology that's going to sustain your building. And it also sustains your light fittings. You have less replacements over time, because the heat that's generated from higher wattage creates deterioration on your light fittings. Whereas your LEDs have no heat. They cool, you can touch them even an hour later, you could remove a bulb, you won't burn your fingertips or burn the light fitting.
Information on the packaging is a note on the bottom of that slide. And we're saying everything that you're going to buy, particularly in the building industry, you'll be amazed how much is on the packaging. The poorer quality products tend to have very little on the packaging. And that should be an indicator when you're buying things. Understanding the lighting in different areas, Muhamed, I think let's focus on the kitchen. And how would a homeowner or an architect benefit from coming to a showroom like yours with regard to lighting up that island, or the centerpiece, or over a sink, and so on?
Well, Graham, I think your visualization as an individual of what you would like to have and what is available for you to have. And that I think is the major selling point of the showroom, is you kind of guide your vision into what you actually can have and what is practical and what is going to work for you. So yes, you can have an image of what you'd like, or perhaps you'd see a picture somewhere over the internet in a movie, and then you come to the showroom and you're like, aha, okay, this is obviously the way to go about it, and I might have to change a few aspects here or there to get what I actually desire, as well as what would work for me as an individual. Because at the end of the day, you live in that space. You've got to change the bulb the next day if it doesn't work. You've got to call the electrician should you have an issue. And to get caught up in just purely buying on what you want as opposed to what is available is very common. And there are people that will give you what you want simply because they can give it to you, and try looking for them a year later, and unfortunately you can't find them.
Plug points are not just plug points.
Yes.
They're different designs, different types, and so on, and are a very, very important part of designing a kitchen. Because if we're going to decide there's a toaster going to be here or a popcorn machine over there, it probably needs a plug point.
Yes, that's correct. Our latest range, well, we term it office systems, but essentially it can be used in any space. And what that does is basically brings your whole electrical point to a very user-friendly area, as opposed to, yes, I'm toasting, but at the same time I've got my radio in that corner and I need to charge my cell phone, and by the way, my kid's iPad or the toy, and you have to run around the house looking for all these plugs, where you can have that on one simple, easy to use desk pop-up. And if that's again planned for in advance with your kitchen designers, they actually accommodate room for that to recess into your kitchen unit as well as to pop up. So you're not intrusive or obtrusive of your actual space in your unit. It's designed behind the line of eye. So it looks very sleek, very neat, and you enjoy it at the end of the day. It becomes comfort again for yourself.
There are just a couple of points that we need to remember when we start planning our homes. And the first point is budget realistically. Now, you may have no clue on what a home's going to cost. I want 300 square meters and I've got R1 million. You won't have to ask around too much for somebody to tell you that's unrealistic. So don't get let down. Get a realistic budget, and remember there's no such thing as a rate per square meter. We at Buildaid have done over 12,500 residential projects in the last 30 years, and no two of them were the same rate per square meter. The second one, don't take advice from unqualified people. Don't listen to your butcher and your hairdresser. They're not qualified to give you building advice. Guys like this will give it to you for free. But most specialists you talk to, including architects like us, if you come and chat to us, we're not going to charge you to talk to you. We'd like to get your work, but you can actually get good advice from some smart people. Employ the right architect and allow him to do his job. It's not about getting the plans approved. That's just a little part of the architectural process. To design a home takes a lot of energy and effort. One of the reasons architects aren't employed properly is because the homeowner gets a quote, they say, of 150 grand to design my home. Are you crazy? To just draw some plans. You need to understand what's involved. Architects charge between 5 and 10%, depending on the type of work, and they're all negotiable like any commercial deal. But when we sell the home and we pay the estate agent 5%, and it's 5% of the whole project, including the land, there's no problem. The reason there's no problem is it's not a cash flow issue. It's coming out of the proceeds of the sale. Up front, employing an architect coming out of your pocket, you're going, I'm not paying this guy 150 grand, I must be mad. You must seriously look at what an architect does. It is critically important. Other one is get involved. Do what you're doing here this morning. Get involved, read things, check the internet, go to showrooms. Talk to people, take your time. Use technology, 3D technology. We design homes in our practice where we'll get you the virtual reality of your home where there's bubbles in the champagne. Your home will be as real as it's built. You'll know exactly what it costs before you start building. If you had 3.1 million rand, it will be 3.1 million rand, and you'll see exactly why it's 3.1 million rand. Use the right architect, use technology, use specialists to give you advice. And if architects don't use specialists, they're either not doing their job properly or they haven't been paid the right fee. They can't do things like kitchens and roof trusses and window frames. Only specialists can do those things. Then employ the right contractor. One of my favorite clients was a man called Ronnie Watson. He was the CEO of Westbank, and he was one of my heroes. He was such an amazing guy. And I had him on the radio show one night to talk to him about how he managed a bank and another game reserve and the lodge I was designing for him. And he told me a whole lot of things. Obviously, he was a good manager, but the thing he said was most critical thing, employ the right contractor, because you're going to live with him for around 9 months. You're going to have to trust him with everything. And then use a contract. Write everything down.
Thank you for joining us. If you would like to watch any more of the workshops in the Homeowner series, follow the Buildaid YouTube channel or visit our website, buildaid.co.za, where you can find a full range of our product offering. To book your seat at our next workshop, visit caxtonevents.co.za. Don't forget to tune into Mix 93.8 FM Wednesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. to listen to the Buildaid show.